Yay! I think I got the technology all sorted out this week, which is great. It's been a bit stressful for something that I feel like I should know everything about. And that's okay. I don't need to know everything about technology, but I feel like I actually was able to start on time without any hiccups. So we'll knock on some wood over here. Let me just make sure we can got my camera. All righty. So to start off, it's Jen here again, broadcasting live from my living room / studio space. Welcome to the third of 4 classes in this stress proofing series. And no worries if you're joining live or watching this as a recording and you haven't watched previous classes. While I'm sharing the information in a series, layering on from one week to the next, you can still benefit from attending or watching the classes out of order or even just as one-offs. All of these classes will live on my Movement for Resilience YouTube channel, along with other tools and practices to help you be more resilient to stress. So in today's class, I thought we could explore your brain on stress and tying into concepts from previous classes around stress proofing ourselves and burnout and how to balance all of that. So to recap, we're going to be negatively affected by stress when we've not developed grounding and regulating practices or resources for coping with stressors. While some of us may be able to thrive, at least in the short term, under high stress, eventually long-term or chronic stress without any relief begins to take a toll on even the most resilient people. And that can happen physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, all of the above. So, however your life story has played out, stress impacts your ability to bounce back and recover. And not just from that chronic stress, but also the normal and expected day-to-day stress that we all experience as humans. Stress is unavoidable. And when the mind and body begin to lose their ability to bounce back after stress, we are then going to be more susceptible to burnout, if we're not already experiencing some of that already. It's been a long year. But we can train ourselves to be more resilient. It just takes some time. It takes practice. Even just 1 minute a day counts. We also need to make ourselves the priority and try on new skills and resources to see how they land in our body and in our mind. So let's try on today's practice. And just as a quick reminder, for the next hour or so, see if you can give yourself permission to have your own experience in your body in your own way, regardless of what I am offering. And doing so from a place of curiosity, kindness, and non-judgment, without an agenda or firm outcome. Let's just see how it goes. See if you can do you today. So, picking up from last week and the first class, we'll begin with that 5-point check-in again. So go ahead and grab your journal or a piece of paper or other note-taking device so you can document what you notice if that's what you're doing. Otherwise, you can just keep it to mind. And again, this is a really quick check-in. You just need to jot down a word or two describing what you're noticing in this moment. And if nothing comes to mind or you're not sure, that's totally fine. Noting that you're noticing nothing is also true. So just notice that. And then skip any points that you don't feel are meaningful places for your attention. So again, with everything, this is completely optional. And we'll repeat this check-in again at the end of class, and perhaps we'll pair some notes. So let's first start by arriving here together. Start to tune into your body and mind state at this point in time. And maybe that starts with a little bit of a wiggle or a jiggle in the body. Maybe lifting the shoulders up and dropping them down. Just maybe seeing, you can ask your body what it is asking for in this moment and just sort of try to follow along with that and give your body what it needs in terms of movement. So that again could be, maybe it's stretching really wide or overhead, maybe reaching out away from you. You can mirror me, absolutely. But then maybe just meandering out in our own way, just allowing our body to move a little bit, possibly in ways it hasn't moved all week. Just sort of notice how that feels. Okay. And you could keep moving if that's feeling nice, or you could come to a bit more still pause. And when you're ready, we'll just go through those 5 points together. So in your mind, can you observe the quality of your thoughts, your mental focus, your clarity at this moment in time? Maybe that is clear-headed or foggy or somewhere in between. And then your body. What sensations are you most aware of in this moment? Sensation examples could be temperature, tightness, pressure, itchiness, tingling. Just notice what sensations you're most aware of right now. And then moving on to the breath. Where are you experiencing your breath most clearly in your body? Anywhere from tip of the nose to the chest, the belly, somewhere else. And in noticing, try not to manipulate or change. Just allow your body to breathe in the way that it's breathing right now. And then your emotions. What feelings are you most aware of? Examples of emotions might be feeling happy, anger, joy, surprise, and also flat emotional affect. That might also be an emotion you feel, or a combination of a few. And then final object of noticing your energy. How are we feeling today in this moment? Sluggish, lively, fatigued, energized, maybe a bunch of things at the same time. And again, with all that info in hand, let's go ahead and organize how we are in this moment into a scale of 1 to 10. And I've said this before, you are more than a scale of 1 to 10, but using a scale like this can be helpful for tracking purposes. So you do not have to do this if the whole scale system doesn't work for you. That's totally cool. But if you're going to track like this, again, 1, we're feeling maybe a bit spacey, shut down, disengaged, tense, low motivation, flat emotions. Whereas 10, maybe we're feeling super energetic, really animated, but over the top in a way where it feels a bit out of control. Our thoughts might be racing, feeling a bit irritation, cranky, maybe a bit of fidgetiness, just can't sit still. And then 5 being sort of that sweet spot about your state that is sort of not too low, not too high, but just right. Things generally speaking are feeling in control in this present moment. You feel present, you feel aware. And I invite you, if you like, to share that chat, that number that you have arrived at in the chat, only if you like. And as you do or don't, we'll just get started. We'll get organized for today's movement practice. And I have a theme today, and I'm calling it Balance the Task. Hopefully that will make a little bit more sense once we get into the practice. And wherever you set up, perhaps having a block or two handy, or a stack of books, or something that can give you a little height from the floor if you need it. And maybe some padding for the knees. That is another thing that might be nice to have. And with that being said, I'm just going to reorganize my camera. So if it starts to be a bit shaky, I promise I will try to keep it from causing any dizziness. So I'm going to bring it up here and just make sure that it lines up and you can see me. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I'm sorry. Trying to make this as smooth a transition as possible. Okay, I think that's just right and it's stable. And I'll just move my chair out of the way. And then just gonna come back onto my mat. Feel free to arrange your mat similar to mine if you're using a mat. And I'm also gonna take off my socks. I find that I just have a better sense about the bed of my foot with the contact on the floor when I take off my socks. It also gives me a little bit more stability. I don't feel as slippy, but feel free to leave them on if you've got them on or take them off at any point. So, balance the task. When you're ready, we're just going to start with a self-regulation tool, a little bit of bouncing. It's going to be really soothing for our nervous system. And so if you've never bounced before, you can imagine what it might be like if you were on a trampoline. And we're not going for big dynamic bouncing in this practice. We're just going to start with a little bit of a bounce in our knee. So just a little bounce, small bounce. I'll turn this way so you can see what I mean. You might need to sort of edit your feet beneath you, just finding a place. You could try different positions with your feet, whether together, further apart. Just notice how it feels to sort of bring this bouncing action into your body. And if that's feeling okay, maybe you start to amplify that a little bit more and bending a little bit more into the knees. Just noticing and observing any sensations from the bed of the feet as they press the ground away, through the ankles, now into the knees. You could even amplify that a little bit more if it's feeling good. Starting to bend a little bit more into the knees where you're maybe even now aware of your hips are shaking. And you could continue to amplify that even further to a place where maybe you even start to be aware of your shoulders starting to shake. Perhaps you can feel your arms sort of jumping up and down in their sockets. Maybe even aware of your shirt. If you're wearing a shirt, possibly lifting up and away from your skin, really subtly. I'm going to stay here for now. This is feeling good for me. I feel like I'm bringing some movement into my joints. I feel like it's giving me a little bit of energy. But you could actually go a little bit further if you wanted to, if you felt like you wanted to explore that either here or at a later time. You could even start to lift off your heels slightly. So I'm going to stay on the fronts of my feet. I'm just going to bring a little bit more action into my heels. Almost like I have little springs under them. I'm going to bring that back down, like I said, just spending a few more moments here bouncing. You taking a breath or two if it's available. And then when you're ready, just allowing that bouncing to sort of resolve itself back to a position of relative stillness. Just pausing for a moment, noticing the echo of that bouncing wave through your body. And then when you're ready, I'm going to step a bit wider, and you may appreciate this too, but again, edit your feet as you need to. I'm going to bring my feet a lot wider now, and I'm going to bring a knee, bend into my knee and almost feel like I have a buoyancy about my legs, similar to that bouncing quality. And now I'm going to bring some action into my spine. So I'm just going to start by turning my body slowly over to one side of my room. So just turn your body towards one of your walls, any amount, and then moving to the other side. And you can take your gaze with you as well. So just moving between these 2 points, sort of bringing some twisting and rotation action into your spine from the lower back all the way up to the neck. And then like the bouncing, we could amplify this a little bit more, starting to bring a bit more of a dynamic action to our twist. So pressing through the ground a little bit more, using that power from the ground all the way up our legs to create a little bit more of that rotation action. See if you can allow your arms to swing. I noticed when I first started this, my arms were sort of coming with me in a really active way. And so see if you can just allow them to flow a bit freely and gently connect with your body as you twist. And when you're doing this, you might also start to invite a little bit of that orienting or scanning of your space. So starting to move the spine with the gaze, maybe back and up behind you, down below and behind you. Doing that on the other side, sort of looking up on the diagonal, and then down on the diagonal. Just looking around, bringing the spine into different shapes as it feels okay in your body. And I will say that I'll often hear from students that moving their head around like this while twisting, if they've not done this before, you might start to feel a little dizzy, and that's totally normal. Just haven't been asking your eyes and head and the vestibular system, as it's called, to kind of orient like this. So that might happen. It's a natural response. So you can just bring your gaze back to face your screen, to look at me, maybe even taking that scanning just to the wall in front of you or outside the window if you've got a window in front of you. And then we'll just allow that twisting action to start to unwind all on its own. Trying not to manage the momentum, just allowing your body to come to a stop in its own time. Any amount. And then again, just pausing, noticing what is coming up and through you. Maybe aware of the beds of your feet on your mat or floor. And then again, you might need to add the feet one more time or many more times. We'll start to lift up on our toes any amount. We'll lift our arms up towards your ceiling. Just pausing there and just noticing your balance at this point, a little bit of a check-in. And then from there, as we lower our heels, we'll bend our knees and sweep our arms back as we hinge a bit forward. And then we'll lift back up high on the toes. Reach up to your ceiling. Woo! I'm really not having a good time with my balance today. And then from there, lowering on the heels, and we'll hinge at those hips and sweep the arms back. And so you can just move through these lifts and hinge and arm sweep a few times on your own. Just maybe even aware, maybe even aware of a little bit of that bounce at the bottom that helps you lift up and also helps bring you back into that forward sweep. So any amount. Doesn't need to be a huge sweep forward or sweep back with the arms. Really just sort of getting some movement into lots of joints of the body, practicing balance a little bit. And one more time wherever you are, we'll just all land high on their toes, reaching up towards your ceiling. Wow. And then when you're ready, just lowering those heels, lowering those arms, and then just again, pause and notice. So we'll next do some spine work. You may have noticed if you've done other classes or come to live classes, I spend a lot of time on the spine, and I think it's really important because it A healthy and responsive and resilient spine is going to help us meander and be out in the world in a bit more of a responsive and resilient way, I believe. So we're going to do some spinal rolls. So rolling from a standing position down into a forward fold. This is the first time for you. You can watch me demonstrate, and then we'll do a few more. But to begin, we'll just think about dropping our chin in towards our throat, and then allowing the head to lead our spine into rounding out through the neck, the upper back, the mid back, and at some point at your own speed, starting to get a sense that you're now kind of dangling over. Bend your knees as much as you need to if you're noticing a lot of sensation or tightness or stretchiness happening on the backs of the legs. This is more of a spine activity than it is a stretch activity. And it's okay to do both, but just if you really want to focus on what's going on in the spine, maybe just bend the knees so you're not so aware of the backs of the legs. And then when you're in this really rounded position, see if you can let everything feel a bit more relaxed. See if you can let your shoulders hang heavy. Maybe they touch your ears. Allow the back of the neck to hang heavy. Maybe even just allow a little bit of jiggling of the wrists and elbows, maybe even of the head. And then when you're ready, press the ground away, and we'll start to return to standing, this time initiating through our tailbone. So that tailbone will start to draw back down towards the heels, and then starting to return our spine intentionally back up to our vertical space. Head arrives last. We'll do that a couple more times. You can follow along with me or explore at your own pace, thinking about drawing that chin in, and think about rolling down through the front side of the body. Imagine each vertebra of your spine, or the spine bones, sort of tipping forward and then allowing gravity to draw them down. And it's okay if your hands aren't reaching the ground. You could even bring blocks underneath your hands if it felt a little bit more supportive to have the floor a little higher for you, or perhaps you have the ability to be down here. Really doesn't matter. This is a spine exercise, not a bendy exercise. So again, when you're ready, let's press through the heels. And this time thinking about restacking those bones one at a time as we think about rolling up now through the back side of the body. Neck and head are the last to arrive. I'm going to do this one more time. Again, you can mirror me or move at your own pace, spending more time maybe in certain parts of your spine, just noticing maybe where there's some tightness or some resistance, or sort of chunks of your spine seem to move all at once. Just taking your time with this. When you come to that forward dangle again, seeing if you can find a little bit of relaxation. And then when you're ready, pressing through the feet, that spine starts to return to its vertical position. Again, head is the last to arrive. Okay, continuing with the spine, but adding a little balance. So we're going to bring some side bending into our practice. There's Kola. She says hi. She always likes to check out things. And so bringing one foot forward and another foot back behind you. And first, see if you can find a position with your feet where you feel like the weight distribution is the same between the forward and back foot. So you're not sort of leaning forward or leaning back into the other foot. So just sort of your head, shoulders, pelvis stacked. You've got about equal weight, 50% of your weight in your front foot, 50% in your back foot. And then from there, finding a distance between your feet that brings a little bit of challenge. So maybe you notice there's a little bit of instability that you create for yourself. And so you can come to that place, or if you feel like you need a little bit more stability, we're just going to walk our feet out a little bit wider. So you just find a place where maybe there's a little bit of that balance challenge, and you feel generally 50-50 weight distribution between each foot. And then whatever foot you have forward, we're going to take that same hand. So I had to think about that today. So my right leg is forward, so my right hand, I'm going to bring it to my hip. And then when you're ready with that other hand, let's reach that up towards the ceiling, any amount. And then when you're ready, start to reach that arm up towards your ceiling even more, such that you bring that shoulder closer to your ear. And then when you're ready, reach a little bit more, almost like you're creating space now between your rib cage and your hips. And then when you're ready, start to reach up even more and lift up and over towards one edge of your mat, any amount. So finding more length on one side of the body. Maybe a little challenged by balance. And it's okay if there's a little bit of wiggling and wobbling happening. That's okay. If it feels like it's overtaking your ability to actually stretch on the side, maybe just walk the feet out a little bit or bring them a little bit closer together. Maybe take a few breaths. Notice how it feels to breathe or expand this side of the body. And then when you're ready, let's bring that arm back down towards the side of the leg. And then we'll just go ahead, step one foot forward and the other one back. So different side, different scenario. Take a moment to organize your feet so they feel like there's even weight between each foot. And then finding that spot where there's maybe a little bit of instability, but not so much it's going to overtake where we're going. And then again, when you're ready, front leg, take that same hand, we'll place it on our hip, and then reach the other arm up towards the ceiling. And then when you're ready, start to reach even more so that you feel your shoulder lifting up towards your ear. Maybe it even touches. And then from there, reach up even more to create a bit more space between your rib cage and hips. And then over to the other side we go. We could also do this with our shoulder, our hand on our shoulder, or across the body if that just feels better for the shoulder. But keep reaching up as you think about pressing back through that back foot. Maybe taking a few breaths and noticing how that experience changes on this side of the body. You can even bring your hand to that lengthened side and just think about breathing, and then notice if you can feel that sensation of your expansion in your body happening into your hand. And wherever you are, pressing through the feet as you lift back up, bring that hand back alongside, and then once again, stepping forward. So going to come down onto the mat, onto all fours. And you can do that by rolling back down through the spine, which I'm going to do, or coming down in whatever way feels best for you today. So I'm just going to drop my chin in again. Think about a really heavy head as it starts to roll me down into a forward fold. Any amount, and then I'm just going to reach forward and walk myself out into my quadruped position or my tabletop or all fours, and Kola is going to be here to inspect. I'm also going to bring, this is Cooper's toy. If you haven't seen it before, I'm going to use that to pad my knees a little bit. It just feels better. And then maybe have your blocks handy here, because I'm going to show you how to use them in a transition. But you don't need them. If you don't need to have them, it's not a necessity to continue. So just take a moment to organize your wrists under the shoulders. Maybe that's a little bit wider of the shoulders, maybe a bit further. You could even roll the front of your mat up a bit. Come on, sweets. Come on, sweets. and bring your wrist creases up a little bit higher. You notice you're having some wrist sensation. And wherever you are, just see if you can keep a nice stable spine. So think about lengthening out through your tailbone and then opposite through the crown, just keeping everything still, just starting to bring some of that rocking action into your table. So just moving the sternum forward and back, keeping length in the back of the neck. Just a little gentle rocking here, maybe noticing sensations that are happening in the wrist. You could do this on your forearms as well. Again, rocking is another action that our nervous system loves, and it also can help release tensions in our back muscles. Just explore a little bit more rocking here. Noticing that everything else stays still. And then when you're ready, you can extend one leg back behind you. So I'm extending my left leg or my leg closest to my screen, and I'm on the tops of my toes. And from there, I'm going to bring some rotation into my ankles. So starting to roll out onto the pinky side of my foot, and then over, then coming on to tops of the bottoms of my toes, and then coming down on the big toe side of my foot, and then rolling back through to the top of my foot. So just bringing some rotation, noticing what your ankle's rotational capacity is today. You could also do this off the floor if that feels better for you. Just imagine that you are trying to, if you had paint on your floor, you're trying to cover all parts of your foot with this paint. We've done a few in one direction, going the opposite direction. So I'm going to start on top, the bottom of my toes this time. I'm going to bring my weight a little bit more, dropping my heel onto my pinky side, coming onto the top of my foot, onto the big toe, and then back to the bottom of the foot. So just doing a few more rolls there. Noticing sensations you might be feeling at the ankle. Maybe you're even aware of some clicking. My ankles are making a lot of noise today, but it feels okay for me. Doesn't feel painful. And then from there, this is where I'm going to collect my blocks. I'm going to use my blocks to help me step that foot I was rotating forward. So I'm now in a low lunge shape, and you can bring that foot to the outside of your foot, and then bring your other block on the outside, whatever feels best for you. And then from there, just explore what it feels like to maybe come off to the fingerprints, and then bringing the head, the shoulders, and the hips to now sort of be more stacking over that bottom knee. Move that block there for a moment. And again, I'm just going to take a moment to organize my body so I feel like everything is stacked. And I'm also going to edit my front foot a little bit so that my knee is on a bit of a diagonal off the side of my mat. I just feel more stable there in this position. And then when you're ready, bringing our fingerprints and our thumb together and just connecting that to our sternum. We could also just bring our fingers to our sternum, and our sternum again is that breastbone where our ribs come into. So from there, when you're ready, we're going to think about moving our spine, twisting our upper body towards our front leg. So wherever your front knee is, twisting the sternum towards that front knee. And then we're going to reach our arms in opposite directions. Just pause there for a moment. And then we'll bring the hands back to the sternum and draw everything back to the first position. That's an option to try and explore. Another one, let's take those arms up overhead. We're going to do the same thing now. We're going to twist our body, rotate our spine to the screen, and then we're going to spread those arms wide again, so reaching in opposite directions. Pause here. Notice how that feels. And then returning arms overhead back to the first position. And then the last one, your choice, whether we're going to do that with arms above us or from our sternum. When you're ready, starting to rotate the spine towards the screen and reach those arms wide. One forward, one back behind you, any amount. And maybe taking your gaze back towards that back thumb or back wrist. And just pausing here for a moment once again. Noticing how it maybe feels to breathe in this twisted shape. Beautiful. And when you're ready, collecting our hands in whatever way back to the first position. I'll use my blocks once again to help support me as I take this leg back to join the other. I'll just move my blocks off to the side, returning to my quadruped or my all fours tabletop position. And again, just sort of check in. How are those wrists feeling? Maybe we want to explore this next side with the forearms down, or you can bring them up on a block. Whatever you feel most supported. Just take a moment to find that in your body. And again, we're going to come back to that rocking, trying to keep a nice, long, trying to keep length in our spine from crown all the way to the tailbone. So we're not doing this and we're not doing this. You could bring your hand to your upper back or even the front side of your body to explore if that's what's happening in your body. But unfortunately, I can't see you. So sometimes we need to use our own feedback. And so when you're ready, we're going to come back to rocking, but this time bringing a bit more awareness towards the hips rocking back in space from us. So now noticing how this bending feels in our knees. Noticing any sensation at our hip points where our thigh bones are coming into our hip. Just coming in and out of this in an easy pace that feels appropriate for your body. Maybe that means that you can bring your hips further back towards your heels. But maybe it is that we are just rocking here today. Wherever you want to explore your experience, your body. And then when you're ready, again, however you want to come into that low lunge shape, blocks, step that. Oh, my apologies. We did not do our foot smush, the technical term for rotating at the ankle. So I'm going to rewind us a little bit. Apologies. When you're ready, I'm going to send the opposite foot back this time onto the tops of my toes. Thinking about dropping my heel towards the pinky side, then lifting that heel up so I'm on the undersides of my toes now, and then dropping the heel in the opposite direction onto the big toe, and then just moving through some ankle circles on this foot, noticing any differences between the two ankles in terms of rotational capacity, or even clicking, noises. And then when you're ready, we'll do that in the opposite direction. Again, you could float that foot off the floor if it just felt better than having the weight on the floor. Beautiful. Hi, Kola. And once again, collecting our blocks, now moving into that low lunge. I'm going to step that foot that I was rotating forward. I've got my blocks here, and I just take a moment to notice how the shape feels. And then maybe I can bring my weight to my fingerprints, and then explore bringing my head, hip over the knee. Just noticing how that feels. Maybe taking a few moments again to explore where you want to have that front foot to best support you to create a bit more stability. And then, just like we did on the first side, you could do all the twists and reaching from the sternum. You could do it all with the hands overhead and reaching, or a combination of both. I'm going to come from the sternum. So when you're ready, pressing through that lower knee, lifting up to your crown, thinking about turning or twisting your rib cage over towards your front leg, sternum pointing towards the front knee, and then reaching the arms away from each other. Coming back through center. And again, twisting, rotating our rib cage, reaching arms away from each other, one forward, one back. And coming back through center. And now last one is we twist and we reach. Maybe we stay here, or maybe we explore taking that gaze again back towards that backhand, any amount, on the diagonal. And then just maybe inviting some breath, noticing how it feels in this twisted shape. And then when you're ready, coming back through to center. And now we are going to come up to standing. So maybe you just stand up from this position, or you use your blocks. Like I'm going to bring that knee back. And I'm just going to walk my blocks back a little bit. And then I'm going to come onto the bottom sides of my toes again. I'm just going to lift my hips up, walk my feet in, walk my stilted hands back a little bit. And then from there, I can either hinge or I can roll back up to my vertical position. And again, just take a moment to pause, checking in on your experience so far. Noticing any shifts in mindset or energy. And now when you're ready, we've sort of warmed up our feet, our ankles, our knees. We've done different bouncing and come into different shapes. So we're now a little bit more ready to explore what may be described as chair pose in yoga. You can sort of imagine, if you've not done yoga, you're just coming into a shape like you're sitting into a chair. So we'll do that together to start. See what happens if you bring your feet, maybe under your hips or under your shoulders, or if you like to do it with feet closer, that's fine too. Just taking a moment to press into your feet. And then I'm going to bring my hands to my hip points. I like to sort of think about when I'm coming into my chair shape, I'm going to send my hips back. And as I'm sending my hips back, you can see I'm hinging over my thighs any amount, and my knees are going to start to bend. So here we are, just coming in and out of this your chair position, trying to keep nice long spine again. So not necessarily coming into this shape or a rounded shape. Again, you can bring your hands to your trunk just to notice if that is going on in your body. And then when you're ready, just coming into your version of chair today, bringing hands back to the sternum, and we can either have that in prayer pose with our thumbs to our sternum or our chest, or maybe, again, bringing fingerprints and thumb together. And from there, let's start to shift our weight any amount into one leg. So feeling like that one leg maybe bounce a little bit, can take your weight. And then I'm going to take my other leg and I'm going to point forward. So tapping the space in front of me with my toe, just a little tap. And then I'll come back to just come on my high toe. And now again, weight into that standing leg. I'm going to reach my foot out to tap cola, any amount, and then I'm going to come back, and we'll do the same thing now back behind us. So balancing with that leg as we just tap the back toe on the floor, knit back behind us. And then one more time, we're now going to reach that leg back behind us and off to the side, any amount. And again, just tap the toe. And then bring that back and then just step through the bed of your foot, pause and notice for a moment, maybe tracking sensations in that weight-bearing leg. And we're going to do that 2 more times. You could think about this like a clock. In my teacher training, we call this rock the clock. So I will do it depending on which leg you started with. It might be a bit backwards, but I'm now going to bend back in. I'm going to come back onto that that supported leg, that same one I started with. And now I'm gonna reach my foot forward till, let's say, 12 o'clock. I'm just gonna tap like it's cold water. I'm gonna see if I can keep my balance a bit this time, maybe my big toe for support. And then I'm gonna reach out to my 3 o'clock, tap cola, and back in, back behind me to the 6 o'clock, just a quick tap, and in, and then any way that I can get close to the 9 o'clock, maybe I do, maybe I don't, doesn't matter, tap. And now from there, one more round on your own, seeing if you can tap even a little bit forward, so reaching your toe even a little bit more forward, towards the front, out to the side, out back behind you, and around to the side, and then return to standing. Again, pause, maybe tracking again, sensations up that standing leg from the foot all the way up to the hip, and then come back to balancing on that foot again. You might be feeling the work, maybe feeling a bit fatigued. So for this next movement, I'm going to walk a little bit this way so we don't step on cola. Bringing my hands back to my prayer position, or wherever it feels good for you. I'm going to step a little bit wider. I'm going to do that knee hinge, that knee bend and that hinge, just like sort of on a one-legged chair. And from that one-legged chair, I'm going to press off back to that standing leg, and then see if I can catch myself in the tree position, wherever that foot lands, wherever that foot connects. Then we'll try that again, maybe stepping a little bit wider this time. I'm going to bend as I send my hips back, and then I'm going to press off, create a little bit of instability for myself. And again, see if you can land in a somewhat stable tree. And then one more time, maybe you step even a little bit wider if that feels okay. Hinging as we bend back, send the hips back in this one-legged chair-like shape, pressing the ground away, and then coming into your expression of tree today. Just pausing here for a moment. Then we'll come out of that. Maybe just need to come back into the middle of your mat if you've shifted like I did. And we'll explore that now on the other side. So again, coming into your chair pose. So we'll sit the hips back, hinging at the hips, bending the knees, and then finding a place for our hands. Feel supportive. Now this time, transferring the weight into the other foot. Just noticing how that's feeling at this point in our practice. Maybe a little bit of a bounce. And then when you're ready, I'll try to do counterclockwise, at least from my perspective. Maybe it's clockwise for your perspective. But we'll reach that foot forward to tap like it's cold water. Come back, out to the side. That'll be 9 o'clock. And come back, reaching back behind you. Tip the toe at the 6 o'clock. And now this time reaching behind me, somewhere towards a 3 o'clock, tapping and coming back. And just step into that for a moment, pause. Noticing how that supporting leg feels at this point, the ankle, the knee, the hip. And we'll do that 2 more times again. Sitting back into chair, transfer the weight into that foot, that leg. And now maybe reaching a little bit forward than you did the last time, just to tap and come in. You could keep challenging that balance or come back for that kickstand. And then out to the side. Step back in. Back behind you. And now off to the other side. One more round, just like that. Maybe reaching even a little bit more this time with each toe tap. And back. And back behind. And then step out of that. Again, come back to revisit, tracking any sensations in that standing leg. And now this time, opposite side with those push-ups to tree. So again, maybe experiencing fatigue again, work effort in that standing leg. So any amount, stepping wide again. We're going to hinge at the hip as we bend the knee. Now this time springing off the floor to find a few moments of tree. And then again, when you're ready, stepping wide again, maybe a little bit wider this time. Bending the knee, hinging the hips back. Press the ground away. Creating a little instability intentionally. And then seeing if you can collect all of that energy in to find more stability. And then one more time, maybe a little wider. Bending knee. Press the ground away. And see if you can, again, sort of collect yourself, finding your expression of tree. Be checking in on the breath again if it's available. Noticing where it's most aware in your body. There's Gigi, our other cat friend, coming to say hi, offer support, and then we'll let that go. So last little activity we're going to explore today will require a block or a book, but if you don't have either, you can also imagine this. It's totally fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect one of my blocks. The other blocks I'll just leave out of the way for now. I'm going to come back to one end of my mat. And when you're ready, we're just going to take a few steps. So traveling from the back of your mat towards the front of your mat, or forward and back, whatever. We're just going to take a few steps. Doesn't matter what weight you start with, nor what hand you start with. But try to remember which side, because it'll feel really, really tough going on the opposite side if you are using the same leg. So let's see if we can do this. When you're ready, just taking one step forward, just noticing the transfer of weight from the back foot to the front foot, and then taking another step forward, again, rolling through the front foot as you roll up from the back foot, and then a final step as you come into the heel, rolling through the foot. Now, bringing most of the weight to that front leg. So, to start, let's keep our back toe as a kickstand. I want you to come to that, if you can, come into that hinging action again. So we're thinking about hinging at our hips. And in doing so, I'm going to start to lower my block towards the ground. I can bend my knee any amount. And once I place the block, press that leg to come back up through standing. Now, opposite hand. This time I'm going to hinge those hips again. I'm going to reach over across my body to collect that block. Pressing the ground away, back to standing. This time, maybe try allowing that back leg to float a little bit. So, block is now in my opposite hand. As I start to hinge down, lowering that block, and then come back up to center. And with that opposite hand, reaching across your body to retrieve that block and back up to center. So just continue to move through this task-based activity where you are letting the block rest on one side and then crossing over your body to pick it up and return to standing. Just noticing the wobbles you might experience. And in doing this action, this block drop, try not to make it so much of a drop, but being really intentional about placing it on the ground. And we could also, if we need to bring the ground up a little bit, as an idea, you can also use a block like this. There's my ground. It's a bit higher now. You could do it from a chair as well. Just a few more moments. Notice if your toes of that standing leg are maybe starting to grip like nobody's business. Maybe feeling a lot of feels and sensations in the foot, the ankle, all the way up the leg. Just one more wherever you are, returning to standing with your block. And we'll just take that leg that was standing and we'll do the little happy dog leg shake, as I call it. So just shaking that leg out. You got a wall nearby. might feel better. So you can really focus on shaking that leg out. You could also imagine you've got gum on the top of your foot and you're trying to flick it off. Just notice that action from the ankle to the knee to the hip. It's whatever. Happy dog leg shake. If you don't know what I'm talking about, imagine a dog when it's really happy getting a scratch on its belly. Sometimes dogs do this happy dog leg shake. You can Google that if you're really not sure what I'm talking about. Awesome. Okay, so now moving on the other side. So I already can't remember which foot I started with, so I may need to switch it up, and you can do the same. So block in whatever hand you want to start with. You can imagine if you can remember which leg you started with on the other side, we'll reverse it, or we'll make the switch. When you're ready, stepping foot forward and rolling through the foot, transferring weight, and then stepping that next foot through. So we're doing this mindful, purposeful walk towards the front of our mat. And one more step. And we roll through. Oh, I think I did it. Yep. And so again, let's start with that back foot toe, like a kickstand. We'll start by hinging the hip, placing the block on the ground, driving through that foot to lift us back up to standing. Reaching across now, the opposite hand to collect the block, and back up to standing. Now maybe you start to float that leg back behind you while you bring the block towards the floor or whatever surface you're using. And repeating by collecting the block across the body and back to standing. Now, if you want to really create some chaos for yourself, you could maybe try placing the block a little bit further away so that you really need to reach over, and including moving your body, moving your spine, everything moves to collect that block. Not necessary. The work in itself is hard enough, but sometimes creating these little challenges for ourselves with no outcome. There's no grades here. Let's just have a laugh. Maybe we fall out of it. But getting some work in that standing leg. Let's just do one more wherever you are. Ooh. And we'll come back to standing. This side felt tougher for me. This leg feels really kind of gross and numb right now. So again, coming back to that happy dog leg shake. However that shows up in your body. Again, maybe it's more of a flicking of the ankle, of the toes, trying to get something off your foot. And then from there, I'll just place my block back and sort of come back to where we began. Just coming back to a little bit of bouncing. Starting off small. Maybe amplifying a bit more if you need to, but as we start to close out our practice, which was quite intense, I'm feeling a lot of warmth, even aware of some sweatiness. So I found this practice quite intense, and if you did too, we just want to kind of gently start to come out of it, recover a little bit, just spending a few moments in our bouncing practice. Maybe tracking where you're noticing that bouncing in your body at this point. Noticing how it feels to breathe at this point. And then from there, we'll move right into that dynamic twist. So maybe adjusting the feet a bit wider, starting to pressing through the ground to wind yourself up, get that action going. Maybe taking the gaze with you, maybe keeping it straight forward at me or somewhere else on the wall in front of you. Seeing if you can create the most relaxed, most fluid arms. Just allowing them to come along with the twist and the momentum. Maybe even listening to the sound that your arms, your hands, your wrists make as they connect with your body. And then allowing yourself to come to a stop all on its own. Allowing gravity and momentum to slow in its own time. And then we'll end again with that high toe forward sweep. And I'm going to invite you to also maybe try a vocal exhale as you sweep back. So I'll start it. I'll do one just to remind us of what we started with, if we can't remember. So we're going to lift up onto our toes as we lift up to the ceiling. Noticing how the body might feel at this point in the practice. And then we'll lower the heels as we hinge at the hips and sweep the arms back. So again, lifting up. And I'm going to add in that vocal sigh. Again, that's up to you. You can try it out. If it doesn't feel good, don't need to do it. I'm inhaling as I lift up and gather my energy up towards my ceiling. And on the exhale, I'm hinging. Next time you come to being on your toes, lifting up towards the ceiling, just pause there once again. And then start to lower slowly back down to the heels. Arms down towards the thighs. And then just pause here for a moment. Notice how you're feeling at this point in your practice. Just taking your time to arrive back. I'll bring my camera down, close your eyes, turn away if that made you a little dizzy the first time. I think I did it okay. Okay. And again, by noting the time, so if you need to go to the rest of your day, our movement practice is done. I'm going to spend a few moments just on that check-in again if you have time to stay. If not, I wish you a wonderful day, or you can definitely stay on and we'll probably go for another 15 minutes or so, but you can always come back to this stuff. As I said, it's going to be available on YouTube just as soon as this class is over. So, okay, so coming back to that check-in, just taking a moment to collect your notebook or journal or piece of paper, whatever you're using, or maybe revisiting in your mind, recalling how some of this stuff landed with you earlier today. So your mind, you notice any shifts to the quality of your thoughts, your mental focus, your clarity. And then your body, what sensations are you most aware of now? Maybe temperature changes, pressure changes. Next, your breath. Where are you now experiencing the breath most clearly in your body? Your emotions. What feelings are you most aware of now? Any shifts or changes? And then finally, your energy. How has the energy shifted or not since we began our practice today? And then just closing that part off with assigning a number from 1 to 10 on a scale. Number 1, that lower energy, less motivation, shut down, disengaged. 10, revved up, ready for action, maybe irritated, cranky. And that sort of sweet spot in the middle, maybe something that feels a bit more balanced, energetic, and calm. Once again, feel free to share in the chat your number if you like. So we'll start to close out today with a little dot connecting. And I'm going to draw on the work of Dr. Dan Siegel, and I'm going to use his hand model of the brain. I want to acknowledge that the brain is super complex, and there's a lot we still don't know about it. So for the purposes of this discussion, we don't need to get too sciencey about it to see how stress can impact the brain and affect our emotions and behaviors. So you can do this with me if you like. We can do it together. First, so finding your hand, because that'll be our model. You can take your thumb and cross it over your palm somewhere towards your pinky. And then you can wrap your fingers to cover over your thumb. So you're making a fist. And this fist kind of resembles your brain. You might need to use your imagination, but there's your brain. And it's actually one half with one fist, because our brain is actually two hemispheres inside our skull. But for demo purposes, we're just going to use one hand. And so our brain has evolved over time in the process of like 500 million years of evolution, where newer structures have developed over more primitive structures in layers. So coming back to our model, you can think of your wrist and forearm as your spinal cord containing your nervous system and your vertebrae and all that movement we were doing in our spinal rolls today. And then your palm, this is your brainstem at the base of your skull, so somewhere sort of back here. And the brainstem is the oldest structure of your brain, often referred to as the lizard brain. You might have heard that before. And this is because we still have access to features and functions of this part of our brain that we share with our lizard friends. And what do we have in common with a lizard, you might be asking? Well, all living creatures have basic functions that must be performed in order to sustain life. These functions originate in this lowest, most primitive part of the brain. And they include regulating your breathing, your heart rate, digestion, reproduction. All processes you're not thinking about, but are happening automatically to keep you alive. So coming back to our hand model now, we've got the thumb, and this is called the limbic system. This is the next evolutionary recent structure, often referred to as the mammalian brain. And this is because this part of the brain is unique to mammals. So you can think about your brain stem and your limbic system as your survival brain. The activity happening in these two parts are below your conscious thought and outside your awareness. And in addition to controlling the automatic processes of the body, these parts of your brain are also where your emotions and survival responses to threat and danger get executed from. So now, finally, when we curl the fingers over the thumb, this reveals the most evolutionary, recent part of our brain called the cortex, what we might refer to as our thinking brain. An activity happening in here is within our conscious thought and awareness. It's where we perceive the outside world and where we manage the emotions and survival responses of the less evolved parts of the brain. And then one feature or one area I want to bring to your attention, it's really important in this discussion, is called the prefrontal cortex. And this is sort of from your middle knuckles down to your fingertips if you're making your fist, if you're listening to this only as audio. And this is the part of your brain that's like right behind your forehead. And this is the part of the brain that actually manages this regulation of the survival brain. And this regulation is super important. If you think about all the stressors coming at you at any moment in your day, whether it's traffic or disagreements with coworkers or family, uncertainty because of our current circumstances due to COVID. When we are overwhelmed by these stressors, the brain stops taking directions from the prefrontal cortex and instead defaults to automatic and defensive responses of the survival brain. Back to Dr. Dan, He refers to this as flipping your lid. So fingers flipping straight up to the ceiling, thumb and palm exposed. And when your lid is flipped, your prefrontal cortex cannot do its job. Rational thought, moral judgment, and self-regulation are going to be limited in this state. We might lose flexibility to manage situations and respond from a balanced, calm place. Sometimes I refer to this as my adult temper tantrum. And this model was developed by Dr. Dan Siegel in a book he co-wrote called The Whole Brain Child. And it was really to help adults understand what is going on in the brain and even share this with their kids to help with emotional self-regulation. It's an excellent resource, whether you have kids or not. Highly recommend it. And so if we come back to this, flipped our lid, we consider this a dysregulated state. I also want to acknowledge that this is a totally natural response. This is part of your brain's evolutionary wiring to survive and keep you safe. So another way to maybe look at this with a little bit of a really big imagination here is imagine that you're walking down the street and you come across a rhinoceros. The rhino is eyeing you and then suddenly begins to charge, head down, horns pointed straight at you. Believe it or not, rhinos are actually quite fast. So, do you stop to think about what to do next? Or do you turn and run away to safety? I don't know about you, but I'm running, and I'm going to thank my brain after the fact for defaulting to a survival response automatically. So, here is good. Flipping our lid is good when our survival is the priority, but not so good when having to engage with your boss, your kids, or trying to manage all the things, including your own health and wellness, and that of the people around you too. So the good news is that you do have the power to bring your prefrontal cortex back online so you can act to situations from a more responsive place where your rational thought, your moral judgment, and self-regulation are possible or more possible. And when we're here, so in that sort of more integrated regular brain state, and we're better able to regulate our emotions here, but we're also going to be more of a regulating anchor to the humans around us. So that takes us into our self-regulation tool for this week. So if we come back to the movement practice today, we explored balancing and task-based activities. You might feel it in your hips, maybe other parts of your body tomorrow. And balancing and task-based activities can offer quick ways to get your prefrontal cortex back online quickly. And these types of activities force you into the present moment. Maybe you even observed this, that it was hard to worry about the past or even stress about things in your future when trying to keep your balance or focus on a task. Maybe. So the next time you sense a temper tantrum coming on, flipping your lid, or even feeling low energy, disengaged, or disconnected, try challenging your balance or focusing your attention on a task. And then really the sky is the limit here. Doing things with your hands like knitting, doodling, balling socks. When I first started bringing mindful awareness to laundry, I was surprised at how much tension I was holding in my body and how often I was holding my breath. You could also reach for something like a tactile stress tool, like this one that I've made out of a balloon. And then I filled it with some dried, uncooked quinoa. You could use rice as an alternative as well. And so when I'm sort of using this tool, and I've been using it the entire time I've been talking, because it helps me stay present and focused and my prefrontal cortex active so I can actually speak to you, I can actually feel the quinoa under my fingers. I can also hear it, which you can probably hear as well. Just find this a really great resource for me. So something to try. And you can also return to today's movement practice at any point, all or in part, as a really specific way for some task-based movement. And again, the sky is the limit here. If you think about it, we are engaging in tasks and having interactions all the time and in any given moment. And we can punctuate these experiences with check-ins or mindful moments, noticing if we're here in that fist or regulated state, or here in more of that flipped lid state, or somewhere on that continuum, because all of this is true. And from there, we can turn these mindful moments into opportunities for self-regulation. So this week, you might try to punctuate your own experiences and interactions with balance and task-based activities, or to help find a calmer, more regulated state about your mind and body. Something to try. So coming to our journal activity part of the class, we'll just spend a few moments here. If you have a journal practice, I invite you to run with it and go from there. We'll spend about, let's say, 4 minutes on journaling. But I'm also going to offer some prompts that you can follow along with that have been similar to previous classes. So first prompt is, notice any shifts in any of the 5 points of observation today compared to last class, the class before. Did any of the movement or activities in today's practice feel beneficial or soothing, or brought about a sense of ease or comfort in your body, something you want to explore again? And then keeping the idea of 1 minute counts in mind, what intention could you set for yourself this week to carve out some practice time? So any notable shifts, any movement or activities you'd like to come back to, and within 1 minute, even if it's just 1 minute that we try to carve in each day, what might that look like for you? I'll just repeat those prompts one more time. Any noticeable shifts in any of the 5 points of observation today compared to last class? Any movements or activities that stood out that you'd like to return to or felt beneficial or soothing, or brought about a sense of ease or comfort in your body? Even challenge is a reason to return back to something, so that is true too. And then keeping 1 minute counts in mind. What intention could you set for yourself this week to carve out some practice time just for you? Just another minute or so. If you feel like it's not enough time to journal, we'll be closing out shortly after this. And if you have the time, perhaps you can continue journaling after we close our class today. All right, so we'll close our practice today with our mantra. I am strong. I am capable. I am resilient. So maybe just reorganize yourself, kind of finding a bit of a comfortable seat if you don't feel comfortable in this moment. You could maybe engage with a self-regulation tool from a previous class or anyone that you like to do. If you're not sure, you might see how it feels to bring your hands over your heart, maybe in prayer position, or even alternately patting your arms with opposite hands, just like I'm doing. And I'm going to add a bit of sway to my patting today. Just take a moment to find a place for yourself where you can experience some comfort and ease in this moment. And when you're ready, you can repeat out loud with me or silently in your mind. We'll go for three rounds. I'll start the mantra now. I am strong. I am capable. I am resilient. I am strong. I am capable. I am resilient. I am strong. I am capable. I am resilient. Okay. Thank you for joining me today. This class again will be added to my YouTube page called Movement for Resilience. Please send me an email if you have any questions or would like to know more about a certain topic relating to stress. I'll do my best to unpack it in our last class, which is next week. And I do hope you found this class helpful and will take elements of it into your everyday life. Also, feel free to share it with anyone you think may benefit from what we've been doing together or what I've shared. So until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Be well, my friends.